Bismillah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good greetings. So I have just watched the 10 biggest sins in Islam by FTD Facts, and I will continue by watching part 2. Of course, I'm watching back to back, but in terms of when I will be uploading this, maybe it will be several days gaps. But anyway, hopefully you have watched that one, and we'll go straight into this video. What is the next 10 biggest sins in Islam listed by FTD Facts?
In this episode about the 10 biggest sins in Islam part 2, we'll be looking more at the specific sins rather than certain types of sins or groups of sins. Welcome back, guys, to FTD.
So yeah, that was the comment that I made in the first part. It is more of a group of sin, type of sin, not specific sins, right? So I think this will be more to the liking of most people are looking forward on this one, I think.
FTD Facts, my name is Leroy Kenton, and I took a look at your comments in part 1, and a lot of you guys were expecting us to go more into details about the specific sins about Islam, but we really thought it was important to take a look and see, okay, well, these are the types of sins and the sin groups, just so that you guys can get a little bit more of an understanding of what kinds of sins exist out there versus a specific type of sins. But like I said, we're gonna jump into specific sins coming up right now. And one of the biggest sins in Islam at number 10 is not fasting. Now, I'm going to be mentioning 3 sins in this one, but I'm going to be keeping it all into just one fact. Breaking the fast of Ramadan or not fasting in that month without any valid excuse is a big sin. Now, the Prophet Muhammad said Islam is built upon 5 pillars, testifying that there is no true God except Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. There's performing the prayers, paying the zakat, Hajj, which is a pilgrimage to Mecca, as well as fasting during the month of Ramadan. And that's found in the Hadith Sahih al-Jami number 2837. Now, the sin coming in at number 9 is dishonoring parents. And there's a passage in the Quran, specifically in Surah 7 verses 23, and it says this: "And your Lord has decreed that you not worship except Him, and to parents good treatment, whether one or both of them reach old age. While with you, say not to them so much as oof, and do not repel them, but speak to them a noble word." I mean, that kind of goes without saying, they are your parents for the most part, do your best to honor them. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but yeah, that's another big sin in Islam. The next sin at number...
Yeah, so that is... I'm not sure because the way this is described is not to dishonor, but from the verse itself, do not even say oof, like, I'm not sure what is the English word for that, but that is responding, right? When your parents say something, even that is considered something you should not do, right? So there's a bigger discussion here, of course, but that is part of the worship of the Creator in terms of our action in our daily life, right? So of course it's easy for me to say something like this because I'm not tested to have such a challenging parent, right? Some other people have complained that really you have to really, because they do not deserve to be my parent, etc., etc., right? You have certain people being tested to that way, right? But in terms of the religion, it is part of your test, it is part of your act of worship, is to do that. It's not because they deserve, because they're such good person. It's more on that is the test that Allah put on you, and as an act of obedience and submission to Allah, that's how, so there's many stories in the Sirah where as a son you have to still birrul walidain, right? So do the best to your parent until the point where they ask you to disobey God, disobey Allah, then that's the limit, right? Because obedience to Allah is superior than the obedience to the parent. Of course, part of obedience of Allah is never to say oof, etc., right?
8 is cutting off relationships. Now, this was a pretty surprising one, and as a matter of fact, in the Quran, Surah 47 verses 22 to 23, it says, So would you perhaps, if you turned away, cause corruption on earth and sever your ties of relationship? Those who do so are the ones that Allah has cursed. So he deafened them and blinded their vision. Now, of course, this, like every other verse, needs to be taken into context, but this is one of the verses that Muslims use to show that, well, yeah, cutting off relationships like this really causes corruption on the planet. And that's one reason why they believe that there's so much division on earth, and it's definitely something that is frowned upon in the religion of Islam. The next sin is...
So that's about Silatul Rahim, right? So you break out Silatul Rahim. So family is such a important part of Islam, basically, and yeah, the act of enjoining Silatul Rahim is such a big what's the opposite word of sin? Will be rewarded handsomely. I'm not sure what's the word. What's the direct opposite word of sin in English? Because sin is like when you do something you shouldn't, you get sin. When you do something you should, what do you get? So I'm not sure what's the English word for that.
Is levying illegal taxes. So in the Hadith Sahih al-Jami number 87, it says this: the Prophet Muhammad said, "Do you know who the bankrupt is? The bankrupt from my nation is the one who appears on the day of resurrection having performed the prayers, fasted, and paid the zakat, but had also abused that person, slandered that person, wrongfully taken the wealth of that person, and spilled the blood of that person. These people will take from his good deeds. If his good deeds are thereby exhausted, he will be given their sins, and then he will be thrown into the hellfire." So bottom line, don't be overcharging people, don't be throwing any kind of illegal charges as well. This is a big sin in Islam. Sin number...
So there's a lot of things listed there actually, right? Even talking bad about things, or what was it? Wrongfully slander a person, right? When you say something to defame a person that it's not true, something like that, for example, right? Of course, spill blood, wrongfully take the wealth, etc., right? So unfortunately there's a lot of unfortunate thing in the world, but unfortunately some Muslims do not really practice that, where they slander people, even if in the politics, even more so, right? Say something that might not be true about the other person. What more about taking, what is not rightfully yours, etc., right? So even nowadays in our country, in Malaysia, we have these corruption cases done or allegedly done by Muslim, which meaning, how can a Muslim that's supposed to be fearful of hellfire do anything like that? It is not worth to take wealth that is not yours and being punished there for eternity, right? It doesn't make sense, but unfortunately.
Number 6 is arrogance, and this is mentioned in the Quran, Surah 16, verses 23. And it says, "Assuredly Allah knows that they conceal and what they declare. Indeed, He does not like the arrogant." Pretty straightforward, but guys, we reach halfway in this episode. If you're enjoying it so far, don't forget to leave a like, as well as if this is your first time here to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. Make sure that you set it so that you can receive all our notifications, and that way you won't miss any of our daily episodes.
Right.
So we got 5 more sins to take a look at. At number 5, we have slandering women, and this is mentioned in the Quran, specifically in Surah 24, verses 23, and this is what it says: "Indeed, those who falsely accuse chaste, unaware, and believing women are cursed in this world and the hereafter, and they will have a great punishment." Next up, at number 4, we are looking at the sin of bribery. Now, the Quran talks about this in Surah 2, verses 188. It says, "And do not consume one another's wealth unjustly, or send it in bribery to the rulers, in order that they might aid you to consume a portion of the wealth of the people in sin, while you know it is unlawful." So avoid all kind of bribes. If you know something is like really, really wrong and illegal and just inhumane, don't be accepting money from it. Perhaps if you guys want, we can dive a little bit more in another episode. But let's move on now to sin number 3, and this is drinking alcohol, a pretty big one, and most people who aren't even Muslim know this about the religion of Islam. This is like a big sin. Avoid alcohol, but not just alcohol, any intoxicants. And in the Quran, Surah 5 verses 90, it says, "O you who have believed, indeed, intoxicants, gambling, sacrificing on stone altars to other than Allah, divining arrows are but defilement from the work of Satan. So avoid it that you may be successful." So again, that passage mentioned multiple things, but the thing that stood out there was really avoiding intoxicants. The next big sin at number 2 is adultery and fornication. Again, this is something that even non-Muslims are very familiar with when it comes to the religion of Islam.
So that is interesting. I think many people know about adultery. Committing adultery is forbidden in Islam. The unfortunate thing is what leads towards that is also forbidden in Islam, but many Muslims nowadays, unfortunately, being involved in, those things. So unfortunate. Even one of the recent, some Muslim YouTubers are involved in some things, some scandals, etc. That why, right? So
things that are forbidden. And we find reference to this in the Quran, Surah 17 verses 32. And what does it say? It says this, "And do not approach unlawful sexual intercourse. Indeed, it is ever an immorality and is evil as a way." And we reached number 1 in this episode. Now, this is one that a lot of people don't necessarily take into consideration, but it's the sin of committing suicide. This is also a very big one in the religion of Islam. In the Quran, Surah 4 verses 29, it says this, "O you who have believed, do not consume one another's wealth unjustly, but only in lawful business by mutual consent. And do not kill yourself or one another. Indeed, Allah is to you ever merciful." So again, it doesn't matter how bad life seems to go or how much you're currently suffering right now. In the religion of Islam, you're advised to not take your own life because that is a sin. So yeah, that brings us to the end of this episode. Those were 10 biggest sins in the religion of Islam, part 2. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. I know there are many other sins, but we just take a look at some of the biggest ones right here. I'll always love to hear your feedback down below in the comments section. And before you guys get out of here, just a reminder, my social media links are below in the video description section. And we also take videos by request. So if you have any topics for future episodes, be sure to let me know also down in the comment section. Now I'm gonna get out of here, but I'll leave you the recommended episode. It's gonna be at the end screen. So tap that annotation once you see it. Enjoy it, and I'll see you guys next time.
alright, so that is the second part. Interesting. What should I say? Now, on the number 1 there about suicide, right? So, I think for Muslim it is well-known fact. However, the thing is, knowing that something is a grave sin is one thing, but when you see someone or you read the news about someone appear to commit something, right? For example, someone commits suicide. Some Muslim actually go to the beyond the line that what they should and judge them to have committed that specific sin, and hence na'uzubillah go to the hellfire, right? So that is a different topic. About you do not know what is the actual reality of that one. Allah knows, and Allah will judge accordingly, right? But for you, because right now there's the issue of mental health, etc., right? So you cannot, because that is for you, meaning for you to take as your, the guidance for you not to go that way. But you do not know what happened in other people's life, and not to say it justify or not, but I'm saying about the fundamental that we should have is judging or put a judgment on anyone is not our job. Our job is to live the life according to what we should live by, and to invite others to such a life, right? So not to judge, oh, that guy go to heaven, that guy to go to hell, etc., right? So just to put in there, because when we learn about this, sometimes it's easy for that guy, he have done that, confirm hell. So that is part of what we shouldn't do, because if it, okay, it's not mentioned here, right, specifically, but normally in Muslim says it is as fitnah, right? So you, is it fitna, or you curse someone, something like that. That is something like a big no in Islam as well, especially when there's a hadith that says if it doesn't actually accurately goes to him, it goes back to you, na'uzubillah, right? So if you say he is already blah blah blah, it might get back to you, and na'uzubillah, we do not ever want to get cursed in the hereafter. So I think that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. See you next time.